Good morning, everybody. Welcome to All Four Queens 555. I had a bit of a strange morning this morning, very tearful this morning, but obviously it's about releasing, isn't it? And if you can imagine my journey, I've had to be very mindful of doing the purging because I've been very aware that everyone's just had like eyes on me 24/7 and listening to me 24/7. And obviously, with all the claims and the negative and the false claims about me medically, you have to be very mindful of like how people will try and interpret that. We all know on the spiritual journey that purging is part of releasing, and not a lot more people, if they was to cry, they probably release a lot of their pain and suffering. My opinion, but we know that that's part of our releasing. However, I've had to suppress it a little bit, but also I've got a lot of people pulling on me at the minute, because I think there's a lot going on in the world, and unfortunately, I did give the warning, and we reap what we sow, and we pray for them. And I know people say we don't, but we do. For even Jesus said, pray for your enemies, love thy enemies. Because my prayer makes no difference as to what God chooses to do and what the ancestors choose to do. I can still pray for them. And whether he chooses to accept it or not, that's up to him, isn't it? He knows what's in their Akashic records, and he knows what they've done. And hopefully he will save them. So I wanted to just say a little bit. I was going to do something, but I'm going to do this one as gratitude today, because I was sitting there, and obviously the tears roll as they do, and I was listening to some music, and obviously I play music and someone sends me their music, and there's that thing going on. But there's the ones that I did. I was doing some stuff on love languages this morning, because I do think in relation to my coaching, I do think it's so important that we understand how we all interpret, and how we, sorry about the stuff in the background, the music was on, but I'm not going to get up and stop it, so just bear with, and some other music will come on in a minute, gospel music. So yeah, I was just doing a little bit about love language, because I think one thing I've learnt on this journey is we're not all the same, and there's this world that's been created where everyone is they're trying to put everybody in the same category and try and feed everyone's needs on the same principles, and not everyone it receives and interprets the same way. And the same for love languages. Some people have past trauma. Now that could be trauma that they've experienced this lifetime, or it's past lifetime, or it's generational. And so there are certain things that they may struggle with, not understanding why they struggle with it. So I think it's really important that when we go into relationships, whether they're friendships and even family, I guess, because sometimes our parents never tell us their challenges because they always try and be so strong, but yet they've probably got challenges and they've got curses in their line and they've not looked at. And so I think, it's just being a bit more mindful that we're not all the same, and, we can't always look at other people and assume that they will receive the way we do or accept the way we do. And it's understanding how they are, and not necessarily, they probably won't tell us all their story, and if they want to they will, but understanding that we're all different basically, but we're all different and we all want love at the end of the day, don't we? And so that leads me to my NLP, neuro linguistic programming, which was very much, I enjoyed that I enjoyed that course because it allows you to just get on somebody else's blueprint a little bit and understand that their blueprint is not your blueprint. That's the best way I can sort of describe it. I mean, there's a lot more into it, and I'll probably do a session on it, but there's a lot more into it. But it's just understanding that their blueprint is not your blueprint. And even if you've grown up with somebody, their blueprint's not your blueprint, because they've still got past lives. They've still got stuff that they probably carry from a past life, depending on whether they, took on a different soul or whatever. So I think we just have to be mindful spiritually of all these different things that create us and our journey. I hope that makes sense. So this morning, from a gratitude point of view, I was sitting and I was listening to some music, and I just want to say there was the gratitude Hezekiah Walker, I need you to survive. That's the same singer. And God favours us, and that's the same singer as well. And then Try Love, Kirk Franklin, and they're all like gospel singers. But I just wanted to sort of say I'm grateful. Sometimes when you look at my story, it seems wild, and it is wild, and it was wild, and I lived it. But I'm grateful for the journey, and I'm grateful for the challenges, and I'm grateful that I was thrown into the wilderness not really knowing anything and understanding anything, because I've come out of it. Well, I say I've come out of it, I'm still in it, but I've sort of, put my faith in God, that he will vindicate me from whatever was done and whatever was said, and he will avenge for me. And I've believed that from the whole of my journey, even though I didn't know where I was going half the time and why I was going there, and things that have happened, and my post being stolen. And I looked at my passport, and my passport had run out, and I couldn't run anywhere, and it was just like, oh, but obviously I just grounded, and I just put my faith in God with my prayer and stuff from the Bible. And so obviously, and all these people wanting to tinker in my head and find the answers and stuff, and I've had to go through all that, and the attacks on your heart chakra and your crown chakra and all that sort of stuff, and yet the answers are in the gospel, and it says that, when you look at Peter, the answers are there. It's just how people choose to interpret them. And obviously I don't interpret them from a hate perspective. I interpret the Bible from a love perspective. And and that's the way I operate in life. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've all got a shadow side, and if someone's going to come at you, you're going to defend yourself, of course, but I'm going to do it in a loving way. But I'm not going to be abused either. So, and just because you're spiritual doesn't mean you can't stand up for yourself. And I think that's the point. And that's one of the things I learned on this journey, because God is love, yeah, and God is forgiveness. But there are some people that you have to love from afar, and you just have to forgive from afar. And you have to heal to forgive. So, this thing about, I forgive you, if you don't heal what it is, this is my personal opinion, if you don't heal the depth of what it is, then you're going to heal, you're going to forgive, but you're going to have resentment, and no one wants to carry resentment. So you've got to heal properly, and then forgive. And Hans Willman says that it can take us as long as it takes, but at the end of the day, God does want us to forgive, doesn't he? So there was that as well. And then I just wanted to sort of say that God's never left us. The one thing, I mean, I used to pray in private anyway, because obviously it was just easier to just not wear a label, and I don't know whether I just didn't feel like I needed to really, but God never left us, and his sons and his daughters, he knew that that some would come back, and I believe that some are coming back. And in believing that he does exist. You can't have dark without light. And I'm not saying people shouldn't dance in the dark. I do want to do a separate session on spirituality and the dark side and the light side, though. I just want people to understand a little bit more about what they're getting into, especially the younger ones. I'm not saying don't do it. That's their choice, and they will reap what they sow for doing it, and their bloodlines and everything else, and it could be something generational that they do. But I just want people to understand the consequences, the cause and effect, and the consequences of going into something and not understanding both. Because I acknowledge the darkness is there. We acknowledge that the devil prowls around in his schemes. We know that, and we know that every day we're tested in everything that we do in our daily life. And that's not a temptation from God. That's a temptation from the devil, isn't it? So I just think that people just need to be very mindful of the implications when they're going down that road, of understanding how the justice and the judgment will play out based on the energy that they're putting out. And then the other element to that is obviously all this negative energy that's been thrown out over and over and over again, especially at me. I mean, I've had that much energy that I've had to transmute. And one of the things I say in my prayers, I hope these people can transmute it when it goes back. But it's not just about the person, it's about the planet. You know, the amount of negative energy that's been thrown out on the planet. You know, we need trees, we need the ground for good food, and we need the trees for oxygen. And you know, we don't want all this dark, dense energy being thrown out. The planet has to ascend, and this old behaviour has to go for us to just move forward in whatever journey God has for us all. And so that's why I say God never left anybody. He was always there. You know, he gave us the Holy Spirit when we were all born. Some people chose to stay in their south node and not do the work, and some people chose to move forwards and embrace God and go in their north node. And I'm not saying everybody that goes in their north node is of God, not at all. But one thing that I found when you get into spiritual warfare, God is your defender. Your angels, your ancestors are your defenders. And when I talk angels, ancestors and God and Jesus, they're spirits. And these people on the dark side play with spirits too, but they don't play with the light ones, they play with the dark ones. So they do understand it, but they just want to attack us because we talk about it. And there's a difference between truth and standing in truth and being open and honest, and then there's the other side of people that want to do stuff in the dark, cloak themselves in the light and say they're of the light, but actually never admit what they stand for. And that's the part that I never understand. I never understand it. If you want to dance in the dark, just be honest about it so people know what they're dealing with. And I do believe, and I was watching a reader the other day, I do believe a lot of people got drawn into something because they were looking for salvation and they went down the wrong road. They went down a rabbit hole, and it wasn't the rabbit hole of God as God stands for biblically. It was a manipulated and it was probably more self-induced as well, self-serving rather than to serve. And I do think a lot of people got caught out by it. And so I said on the other one, I do think a lot of people are just sitting overwhelmed trying to unravel everything that they've ever been taught, or the way that they've saw things, or the perception. But in one way, I pray for them and I hope they get through it, and whatever energy they put out, they've got to live with it and they've got to deal with the karma that comes back. But on the other side of it, I do believe that's the Great Awakening. Because God never left us. He was just sitting, he sits high and he looks low, doesn't he? He never left us, but he knows that we've all got a journey and we've all got lessons to learn. And one day we'll come back and he will save those that have learnt the lessons and just understand that he is there for us all. And everyone should have their own relationship with him, I think, personally, and with Jesus. Personally, that's my point of view. And with the archangels. And I'll do a session on that, because when I was in my house and I was going through so much, and there's some art I want to share as well, but I'm not going to do it just yet, because it's just like there's so much I want to share with people, and so I can help as many people as I can and get them to understand a lot more about what goes on. Not necessarily just to give them a different perspective on things. I mean, some people might believe it, some people might not. But anyway, my art, and then when I was going through my awakening, the angels, I had the purple flame. And I did, and it was there. And then there was this element of something was happening where all this darkness was being pushed at me, and I was like in the dream state, and all this darkness was being pushed at me. And I remember just recanting the Our Father prayer and going, I believe in God, I believe in God, I believe in God, God will save me, God will save me. And then all of a sudden this white just pushed into my dream state, and it was just like it just cleared out the dark. Now I went somewhere, this was in last year, I think the summertime, or it was like coming into the just early winter, and I parked up, and obviously because I got people following me everywhere to go to the hotel, I decided to sleep in the car on the car park, and I paid for my ticket and everything. And then all of a sudden this darkness covered the sky, and it was just really weird. And I lay there and I said, you're going to have to help me, I don't know what's going on here. And then all of a sudden this just white cloud just came and just pushed it out of the way. So for me, I felt like that was in my dream state it had happened, and it was then manifested into reality. And it was so surreal. So surreal. I mean, a couple of them I videoed, but it was just surreal. And that's when I, just when your faith is so important. So I'll just leave it on that one. I hope that makes sense to somebody that's on this journey and is understanding that there is more out there for us all, and faith is so important, especially when you hit into spiritual warfare. Who else is going to fight for you? And when people are making claims about your health, you've got to stand by God, haven't you? Because other people would just want to go down the scientific route because it makes life easier for them, doesn't it? Or the medical route, whatever. But anyway, I'm going to love yous and leave yous. Have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you on the next one. I'm going to do some scripture on some others, and I'm going to do another one on the chakras as well. So love yous and leave yous, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.